deposition in me. So we have been vetted, see? Is this the microphone I'm supposed to use? This is one? Okay. Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit down here, and I'm going to just tell you all a little bit about what happened. Where do I begin to tell this story other than at the beginning? My husband and I have been married twice, and the first time was in the 90s. We were married for about 6 years. We always loved each other. We are very, very good friends. We divorced. You know, we just had issues. There was some stuff going on. I have lived my life as an entrepreneur. I've hardly ever worked for anybody my whole life. I've always had a real knack for figuring out what I want to do to make the world go round. And so I was actually performing at the time. I had my own band. I was on the road. I had built a business in Houston. It was called Renee King's School of Performing Stars. And I actually was teaching stage and vocal performance out by the Galleria. And I had some 50-some-odd students, and I was gone all the time. And my husband and I at that time just couldn't quite make the cut. You know how it is when you're young, and just didn't work out. So, but we still loved each other, and so time passed, and we remarried. 6 years ago, I moved in with my husband, and he didn't have the ranch when we were married before. The first time, we had a small home in Oyster Creek in Texas, near Freeport. And the house was, my husband's always been really good with, he's the real solid, stable, grounded, worked for Dow Chemical for 30 years. His sister worked for Dow, his dad worked for Dow. He was a Dow man. And my husband just had a really good sense about, land. And so he was always, wanting to, buy land. And so the house we lived in when we were married the first time, he had bought it as a foreclosure. It was paid for. Well, when we got married the second time, he had acquired this ranch. Well, his grandfather, his grandmother was a chicken rancher, and his great-grandfather was a beef cattle rancher that used to bring cows in from San Antonio, like in the early 1900s. They would bring these cows in all the way into Houston, where he had a meat packing plant, a slaughterhouse, one of the biggest ones in Houston. And it was like the cowboy days. I mean, he had the brand. My husband has the brand that has S-O-N on it. The spurs, the silver spurs that his great-granddad wore. Some kind of a weird knife, I guess, that they used in those businesses. I don't know. But, so anyway, the ranch was not something I was used to. I personally am not from a cattle ranch background. I was a city girl, born in Houston. The song "I Love the Nightlife, I Wanna Boogie." Well, that was me. I mean, I was always, like, where's it happening? I wanted to be in the middle of it, and here I was attracted to Tommy Sonnen. We were so opposite, but in a very good way. We really complement each other. So when I moved out there, and I didn't really want to at the time, being an entrepreneur like I was, I had been selling real estate. And I loved selling real estate in Pearland, Texas. I was really into the master plan communities. I did really well at it. But whenever Tommy and I got married and I moved out to the ranch, I did not want to sell real estate out there. It wasn't fun. It wasn't something I wanted to do because I didn't want to sell rural property. So anyway, I got out there and I started getting to know all these animals. Well, I always thought I fancied myself somebody that loved animals. You know, I fancied myself, I always loved out dogs, cats, had a bunch of them. And when I got out there and I started being around these cows, I couldn't not get to know them. I found myself, wanting to go out in the fields with them, and, I was scared at first, so I am a yoga teacher. I teach meditation. I've done this for like 30 years through my whole life because I had serious back problems throughout my life. So I gravitated to yoga, meditation, became a teacher. I've had a yoga studio. Seriously. If you really think about, when I really think about the things I've done in my life, I make myself busy. But anyway, so I'd go out there with the cows and I'd do yoga. That's how I got to know the cows. Because if you approach them, like you just want to go approach them, they don't like that. They're going to pull back. But if you just get out there and be kind of quiet, and calm, and silent, and meditative, they get curious, and they want to come near you. And I would find myself just mesmerized by the feeling of these beings just coming in my space because I was in their space. I was truly in their space from a place of being, not doing anything except breathing or holding a position. And they would just come to me and they nose me and they even lick me, and I'm like, and I just keep doing tree pose, or I just and they were just like, and so anyway, I started naming these cows, and they always tell you don't name the cows. You don't name stuff you eat. Well, I wasn't looking at it like that at the time. I was still eating them then because I wasn't vegan in the beginning. And so I remember the first time that my husband brought in the red trailer. The red trailer was the trailer that takes the babies to the sale barn. And this is a beef cattle ranch, okay? It's not a dairy farm. Dairy farms are very different than beef cattle ranches. So a beef cattle ranch, the babies are born naturally. They're not artificially inseminated. They live on the ranch for about 6 months, and then they have to go away. And my husband's words were always, well, it's time to send some cows up the road. And I'm like, up the road. Up the road always meant to slaughter or to sell barn. What they do is they go fatten them up. You've seen those places where there are just tons of cows, just feedlots. So all these babies, all these animals that I would get to know would leave twice a year. And the mamas would run after the trailer. The babies would be looking out the bars. And I would be in a panic. I could not stand it. I was not vegan, but I knew something was wrong. Something was wrong with us. And I cried. The cows would cry into the night for several, like a week or more. I know that, it never stopped. And if you have 8 or 9 mama cows all crying at the same time, my husband was like used to it. And I would go, how can you stand this? How do you stand this? And he'd say, well, you just get used to it after a while. I said, no, I can never get used to this. I can never get used to this. And, and we'd have these fights. Twice a year we'd go into these fights. And I went outside and I would just cry over the fence with these cows. They'd just be making these horrible, just looking for their baby sound. And I just would cry with them, and I'd ask their forgiveness, and I would beg their forgiveness, and something in me just started dying every time this happened. So the next time it happened, he wanted to try to hide it from me. He didn't want me to know, but you always knew. I always knew when that red trailer rolled in. And if I happened to be staying out of town with my mother or something, and I'd come home, I could always tell that the pasture was empty. I could feel it. The moms would be crying. He could never hide it from me. And so we started having more and more fights. And then we started getting chickens. And, I was probably more scared of the chickens at first than I was the cows, to be done, to tell you the truth. And, but now the chickens, are like, they're just like, I don't know, they're like family members. They come into my house. Dixie Chick, a lot of you have seen Dixie Chick. She comes in. She's my back porch chicken. But, so I started getting to know the chickens, and I would come home with a Chick-fil-A sandwich, say, or a chicken sandwich, and I'd have these chickens at my feet. And I'd be eating the sandwich. I'm giving you moments that caused me to go vegan. Living on the ranch with chickens that I loved and eating their cousin. I don't know what it was. It could have been their sister. Who knows? It just, something started really feeling really wrong to me. And so, every time it was time for the red trailer to go off, it would get further and further. Like, it was supposed to be twice a year. Well, my husband dreaded it. He just dreaded it because of the way I acted. And towards the end, I went vegan in October of last year. And it was a process of these little moments. Me bringing home hamburgers, me going to Kroger's or H-E-B or Whole Foods and buying, animal products. Yet we never slaughtered our own cows or chickens. Or we ate the eggs, back then, but not anymore. But, and I started getting this real disconnect in me, wondering, why are we buying meat, actually it's animal flesh, why are we buying animal flesh from the store and we're selling these so-called, humane cows to a sale barn? And I asked my husband one time, I said, why don't we slaughter our own animals? I started getting these light bulbs inside. He said, I couldn't eat anything that, that's here. We couldn't do that. I'm like, why? How come we can eat it from Kroger's, but you can't eat it out of your yard? What's the difference? And I started asking these real hard questions. And so I pushed him. I want you to know, I didn't deliberately, manipulate him, but something in me was pushing him. It was like something in me was just pushing him to the brink of when this all happened. And I said to him one day, so if you were gonna kill one of those cows out there, which one would you kill to eat? And he said, well, I don't know if we can do that. I said, well, we need to do it. By golly, if we're going to eat these animals, if we're going to eat hamburgers, we're going to eat meat, we need to be eating our own. And I pushed him to that. And so I said, pick one. He said, well, if I had to pick one, I guess it would be, now, Lucky wasn't named at the time. Rowdy Girl is the cow that I bought 6 years ago. That's what got me the buy-in at the ranch. Tommy wanted me to have my own cow because I was a city girl. He wanted me to have part in this ranch, and so that was his biggest mistake. Rowdy Girl cost me $300, and she was a little baby, and I bottle fed her, and she grew up, and she had Lucky. Lucky is a beautiful bull. And he escaped the red trailer back in February. He escaped it, and that's why his name's Lucky. But he hurt his leg real bad. And so my husband always said, that bull right there ain't gonna make it. He ain't gonna make it. He's got that bum leg.